Welcome to CYF Spotlight, presented by the Commission on Children, Youth, and Families. The Commission is a joint effort between the City of Farmington Hills and the City of Farmington. Its purpose is to foster a healthier community by focusing on our most precious resources, our children and our families. The Commission is made up of dedicated volunteers and community activists from all walks of life. Working together with other groups and agencies in the community, the Commission creates programs with one goal: to encourage a supportive environment where children, youth, and families are happy, healthy, educated, and safe, and have the opportunity to reach their full potential. The Commission is hosting this show to bring our focus and activities to the community. We welcome your input and support. You can learn more about our Commission at our website, www.cyf.us.
Welcome to our CYF Spotlight Show. My name is Carmen Francis. We have a special guest today on our show who is the author of The Hero in Me. Susan Fitzsimmons has written a book for kids, but I believe everyone with a family needs to hear her message because we all have been bullied once in our life, and now bullying are taking over our young people's life. So our goal here at CYF is to help spread the word to each and every family and stop bullying within our communities and help our kids. Before we get started, I would like to introduce Susan Fitzsimmons.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Susan. First, before we get started, we would like to find out what inspired you to write The Hero in Me, and tell me a little bit about your family background before we get started with our individual questions for today.
Perfect. Well, I am a mom of 3. I have a son and I have twin daughters, and I would say that my son has been a major inspiration to me in writing this book. He loves superheroes, and so as he was getting older, I really wanted him to know that a true superhero is somebody who helps others in need, and that you didn't have to have a magic power to be a hero, but just someone who goes out of their way to help people is really what a hero is all about. So he was a major inspiration for me in writing the book. And I've been a counselor for 9 years as well in elementary school. So seeing what kids go through at school on a daily basis gave me even more inspiration so that I could know, hey, I can help kids by using this as an example.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Susan. How can a parents tell when a child is being bullied in general?
There's a lot of signs for parents to look for. A couple of them are, I got a stomach ache, I don't want to go to school today, I don't want to ride the bus, or, they're playing like they don't want to go to school. That is like one of the number one things. There's a statistic that says 160,000 kids a day in the United States do not go to school because they are afraid of being bullied. And so I think that's the first go-to for kids, is to say, I don't want to go to school. But I think other things to look for is that, are they more withdrawn than usual? Are they making changes that you they aren't normal for them? They want to dress a certain way, or they want to bring extra things to school, and so those are key for parents. Or there's a slip in grades. Suddenly they don't want to go to their sport that they're used to after school. They say, well, you drive me instead of riding the bus. Those are keys for parents. And if you ask the initial question and say, is something going on? And your child initially says no, I think a parent knows in their gut if something is going on, and because they might not want to say. They might feel ashamed or embarrassed or responsible. And so I think as a parent, if you feel like, this is something more, my kid's grades are dropping, my kid's excitement about school isn't there anymore, keep on asking. Keep on asking and saying, well, I've noticed that you're a little different lately. Or I noticed that you don't love school like you used to, and I'm worried about you. Those are great ways to open up the conversation.
Okay. Can you share with us some examples of student being bullied? Just giving us an example of a student at school being bullied, and maybe one on the internet. I mean, because we have cyberbullying also.
Right.
So we can just start off with some examples of
Probably the most I've seen kids open up about the situation is from my counseling experience. And I think what happens is that one thing is that sometimes kids get bullied so much that they become very introverted. They try to internalize all of their feelings, and then they wind up becoming a bit explosive. That's when parents notice that there's a problem going on. Mm-hmm. And so then they start trying to address the issue. So a student who repeatedly gets called names at school, they have situations where their friends say, you know what, we're not going to be your friend if you hang out with this person. They say, my guess is that the majority of bullying at school is verbal before it ever becomes physical. Okay. And so there's always something that leads up to that. So it's a lot of name calling. It's a lot of, we don't want you here. We don't want you near us. And that really plays on a child's self-esteem and their ability to speak up and combat the situation until they ask for help. So that is a big deal. I would say the name calling at school is one of the number one things that kids experience. The cyber situation takes it up a notch. And kids will, one situation that just breaks my heart, where I had a student come to me and share that he was on a team and his teammates had been bullying him at practice, at school, mostly verbally, before the text bullying began. When the text bullying began, they actually pretended that they were someone else. Oh. And so this was middle school. That happens a lot, where kids feel like, well, if I pretend I'm someone else, I'm going to get away with it. And so they pretended to be someone else. And they said, oh, if you sit at this spot in the lunchroom, I'll sit by you. And they pretended to be a girl. They were all boys. And so sit in this spot tomorrow at lunchtime. And he did. And so he sat in that spot at lunchtime and waited and waited and waited because these boys pretended to be a girl that they would sit by him. And he quickly noticed that the girl had no idea, but that a bunch of boys from, his team were kind of mocking and laughing and snickering at the table behind him. And that just, it escalated the problem. It made him not even want to be on the team. And so that's how texting, and I have another situation that had come to me was, again, it started with the verbal, back and forth, and then so this was a situation between two boys, and it wound up getting physical. And so the one kept coming at the other one, coming at him, and he was trying to take it. But he crossed a line. And there's a line that I like to teach kids, is that it's a don't go there line. You do not get to tease people about how they look, about how they learn, and about how they live. And so this gets kids, like when we start teasing kids about their family life and how they live and where they live and their culture, their religion, you've crossed a line. Yes. And so what happened was, on the bus, this boy crossed a line and he started teasing this boy's family. And what he did not know is that the boy had that very week been told that his mom was diagnosed with cancer. Oh. When the boy started teasing his mom, the other kid lost it, and then a physical confrontation happened. And so those topics need to be off limits, because you don't know what's going on in someone's life. You don't know, what their home life is like. You don't know what they face on a daily basis. And so we really need to get that message across to kids that how someone looks, how they learn, and how they live, it's never okay. It's never okay to tease people about those things. And those are just a few of the situations. And some of it gets bigger, and some of it, kids can rise above and learn to deal with on their own. And if they learn to deal with it on their own, it's not the first time. It's because they have learned to say over and over and over again, you need to stop that, or I don't appreciate that, or why do you care so much about what I do? And a true bully isn't going to stop the first time. These kids have said it over and over and over again. So I tell kids, if you say it one time and the bullying continues, that's okay. That's okay. Keep it up. Keep saying it over and over. You keep standing up for yourself, and eventually that will stop. But sometimes you need to get an adult involved. In those situations that I shared with you, those are definite situations where adults need to get involved.
How would we be able to characterize a bully?
It's so hard. It's really hard, because bullies come in every shape, every size, every gender. It's hard to say that because this happened, someone is going to become a bully. I would say that there is one sign, and I think that kids who tend to be impulsive, they can lean towards becoming a bully a little bit easier. Also, kids who are attention seeking. Bullying behavior is very much attention seeking. They want all eyes on them, and they want to oftentimes make a scene and have people watch. And so although I couldn't say if a kid has this, and this, they'll become a bully. Those would be two things that, as a counselor or a teacher, even a parent, I would really look out for.
Okay. So would you say the behavior of a bully comes from home, or are these individuals that's not getting the love at home? I mean, how would you?
It kind of varies. That can definitely be a place where it starts. It could start in the home, either with parenting or sibling. Maybe the conflict is resolved in an angry manner, and so that could start it. But oftentimes, maybe kids are just feeling like they don't have the control that they need. And so they decide that, that's a way that they're going to try to gain control over their circumstances.
So you think there could be just acting out because of a problem at home?
It could be,
Okay.
but not necessarily the only reason.
Okay. Our next question are, what are some questions should a bully ask themselves?
So if kids are displaying bully behavior, they might want to ask themselves, do I have true friends? Do my friends like me for me, or do they hang out with me because they're afraid not to? They might want to ask themselves, do I feel good at the end of the day? Do I feel good about the choices that I've made? Because kids are faced with multiple choices on a daily basis, and so they need to ask themselves, do I feel positive at the end of the day about my choices, or do I feel like I need to work on some of them? And they might be able to do that alone, but a lot of times they need to ask for help.
Okay. My first question is, how would you characterize a target?
Bullies oftentimes choose their targets very carefully, and they will they'll select people who they think might not tell. They'll select people who they think might not stand up for themselves and speak up when they're in the situation. Because the last thing a bully wants is to be grabbing all this attention and then have the target actually stand up and speak up for themselves. So they might be shy, they might be quiet. But again, just the same with the bully, it's really hard to say, kid is this, they'll become a bully. It's really hard to say, well, if a kid is this, they'll become a target. So we just have to be aware that anyone can become a bully and anybody can become the target.
Okay. That leads me into how does a bully find its target? I mean, what do they go out and just pick on any child, or are they looking for certain behavior from a child to pick with them?
That's a good question, and sometimes I feel like it's out of convenience, where they're sitting on the bus. Maybe that student was just close. Or it could be, again, like I said, they chose that person because they feel like the person isn't gonna stand up for themselves. So, a target can be really careful if they've noticed that they became a target on the bus or in the lunchroom or on the playground because either they were close to the bully or maybe they were all alone. They can be really careful about strategically placing themselves near an adult or surrounding themselves by friends. That helps in situations where they feel like, oh gosh, I was a target, so I'm going to really be sure and be careful about where I sit or where I play on the playground the next time.
Okay, let's move on. I want to talk about, you have two types of bystanders that's mentioned in your book. Would you share with us the importance of those bystanders?
Yeah, I mean, most kids fall into the bystander role. They see themselves in the situation and they don't want to become the next target, so they fall into a bystander role that I call a hurtful bystander. So the two types would be, there's a helpful bystander who is empowered to stand up and do something, and then the hurtful kind who really, they laugh along, they join in with the bully, they cover up for the bully when an adult asks what happened. And so because they're the hurtful bystander, honestly, it's my belief that they kind of contribute a lot to why bullies exist. If the bully had no audience, I oftentimes ask kids, what would happen? What would happen if nobody laughed along? What would happen if nobody thought that that was acceptable or cool to call people those names? So yes, in my book, I say when kids get bullied, adults are not there. So you must do more than stopping to stare. The book is written in kind of a sing-song rhyming pattern so that I hope that kids remember these things. And so I say, you might be surprised, but kids hold the power to end all the meanness this very hour. And the truth of the matter is that I can teach them all I know, and parents and teachers, we can teach kids all we know, but it's really up to those kids who are the bystanders, the ones who are there. Because they're there, right there when it happens. They can put an end to it. And we can teach and teach and teach, but the kids really need to become empowered to make a difference.
I agree with you. Okay, our next question is, when do you think it's important to implement the two types of bystander in a child's life? Should it be kindergarten or when they begin first grade? And when I say that is, when do you feel it's important to let these kids know what they should be standing up for?
Yeah, you know what? I think as early as we can possibly start teaching them, the earlier the better. I mean, with any situation, early intervention is always the best. And so if we could teach kids, we see somebody drop something. Oh, you know what? Help them pick it up. Or someone's got their hands full. Oh, honey, go grab the door. We're just teaching, look out for people who need help. And then the more direct teaching, as they get older, we can start using books like The Hero and Me. We can start using situations that are happening in our home, by asking kids, did you handle that in a way that makes you feel proud? Because that's the hero in me way. Did you handle that in a way that makes you feel proud? Or do you wish you would have done it differently? And it's okay if they say, I wish I would have done it differently, because that gets a conversation going. Yeah, you wish you would have done it differently. Well, how? And just to get kids starting to think about how would it be a better way to solve that problem, and that would make you feel really good. And so we get those conversations going as early as possible with kids.
Okay. Susan, how can teachers use your book in the classroom to help students feel bully-proof?
The book is awesome for teachers and parents to get conversations rolling. And I feel like the best ways that they can get help actually happened quite by accident in the book. I had some extra blank pages in the back. And we got into like, I have no more text to write. And so what I did was I wrote tips in the back of the book. These are awesome for parents and teachers. So we have a hero's guide to reporting a bully, because there's a special way so that they don't look like a tattle. A hero's guide to standing strong, because again, it's been proven that one of the #1 ways that students can arm themselves against a bully is self-esteem, self-confidence, even if they don't feel it. Even if they don't feel the confidence, they can show it, and then they will feel it eventually. So the confidence guide is in the back of the book. I also wrote, what can you say to a bully to be really proactive about it, and then tips for good friendships. So if kids have really great friendships, they can really stand strong and stand together, because that makes a huge difference. One of the things that I learned when I was teaching was that teachers have a lot on their plates. There's a lot of curriculum, and it's really hard to embed character education into a teaching curriculum. So I used my book and the character traits that are written throughout it, and I wrote a curriculum guide to go along with it that's already aligned with what teachers are already teaching. So if a teacher wanted to use this, or any character education book, doesn't have to be just The Hero and Me, they could purchase a guide like mine or any other that's already aligned with their curriculum. Okay. So they're teaching their reading and writing skills that they need to teach the kids, but they're using books like this as opposed to the books that are in their anthologies or whatever that they're already using.
Okay. Did you want to share a few tips that you had on in the back of your books? Or?
Yeah, I would. One of the tips that I think is really important is a tip called Be Proactive. Okay. And that's from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and so, which is another really great read. But if I'm proactive, I have a plan. I don't want kids to wait until it happens to them. I don't say, wait until you get bullied or you see bullying, but be proactive and be ready. And so I might say to kids, what would you say? And so the 20 things a hero would say to a bully, or if they're a bystander or whoever, it's, look through the list. There's 20 things, look through the list. And I might say, pick one you'd feel comfortable saying. And be ready with it. Because oftentimes, if I'm not ready, then I wind up saying the wrong thing. Okay. And kids, when they're reactive, the opposite of being proactive, when they're reactive, they say the first thing that comes into their head, and it's usually a bad idea. So if they're ready for it and they're ready to say, hey, you know what? Why do you care how I look? Why do you care who I hang out with? They know what they're going to say, and so then they can say the right thing.
Susan, would you say that the book is written for kids, but in some cases can be used for adult life, everyday life? We have a couple bully situations that's been going on in the news. So,
yeah, I would. I mean, I wrote the book with a very elementary mindset, and I wrote it in the rhyming language that it does, because I feel like that helps kids or anyone remember the tips that are in it. But the principles of the book are ageless. They span every age group. I've spoken in elementary schools and middle schools on the topic. I've talked to high schoolers even about how can you stand strong? How can you look confident even when you don't feel it? Those are life skills. I've put myself in situations where I'm reciting the things in my head. Okay, I gotta be ready. I gotta look confident. I have to, and so the principles really, I believe, are ageless.
Why is it important for students to learn how to laugh with themselves?
Oh, it's such an important skill. They need to learn to laugh at themselves sometimes because we all have strengths and weaknesses. And bullies have a way, or kids who are displaying bully behavior have a way of zeroing in on those weaknesses that you have and that you're already self-conscious about. And so when they zero in on those, it's like a student has to be able to say, yeah, you know what, that's not my strength. I'm not very good at that, but I am good at, reading, and I'm good at math, and I'm good at singing, or whatever it might be that they really have a strength in. And so I feel like if they don't understand that about themselves and they can't kind of be playful and laugh along, then they're going to be mocked and laughed at.
Okay. You suggest that students join groups. How does groups help the bullying situation?
I do. I think that kids need to involve themselves with various different social networks. And that's because that's a life skill at the end of the day. I mean, I joke and say that I told my son that he was going to need to join another organization, or I told him he was going to join our church choir because I felt like he needed to experience what it was like to be on the football field with kids. And then he needed to experience what it was like to be in an academic situation. Then he needed to experience what it was like to be in this situation as well. Because if something goes wrong in one peer group, then they have multiple groups where they fit in. And also they learn relatability. They learn how to relate here. They learn how to relate to different age groups, different social groups, which is a life skill that we all need to learn along the way. So it really helps them. It helps them feel confident. It helps them gain different groups of friends, and it helps them relate to all different types of people.
Helps them be very diverse.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. You mentioned two types of method, or two-for-one kind of method. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's another tip that I like to teach kids is the two-for-one method. And, that kind of stemmed from, I have twins. And so I've always felt like, hey, if I'm not getting the two-for-one deal, I'm spending way too much money. And but the two-for-one is always outweigh your negative situations with positive. For example, if a child is always speaking negatively, then they perceive everything negatively. So I want them to say, for all of the negative attitudes that they might feel, they need to feel twice as much positive. So if they start speaking and saying, oh, this was bad and this was bad, we need to stop them and say, wait a minute, let's talk about some things that were good. Or if they say, I don't like this about me and I don't like this about me, then we can stop them and say, yeah, maybe that's not your strength. So let's double up twice as much positive. Have a list and write down twice as many things that they feel positive about, so that's where I get the whole two-for-one thing. For every negative characteristic or thing that we don't like about ourselves, there's definitely more positive. So focusing on that is a good key.
Okay, Susan. Well, Susan, in today's society, we have the social network with everyone. So you mentioned a little bit about ABC cyberbullying. What is the most important information you can share with the parents about cyberbullying? And what to look for, since everything and everyone is on the social network?
Yeah, that hits kids at a older age. And so that is the pinnacle age for bullying. Middle school really tends to be, and middle schoolers everything's online or texting. And so cyberbullying could be another show in and of itself because there is so much involved in it. But the whole, for parents, really need to be aware. They really need to be aware of the time that their kids are online, the friends that their kids have in their Facebook friend list, and anything like that. And they have to know what their children are doing, friend their kids, be aware of it, try to stay on top of it. And there's software out there that can really help with that. So all different kinds of things that they really can do. But oftentimes I say to kids, you really need to block that friend who is not being kind online. And kids respond to that by saying, but I want to know what they're saying. And so we need to empower them to know that if it's not positive, it doesn't need to be on your Facebook wall or in your text messages or anything like that. And so I encourage kids to block other kids, but then report it. And before they block it, save it and report it.
Now, should they be reporting it to their parents first? And then if the parents feel it's necessary for the authority to get involved? Then...
Yes, absolutely start with their parents or any other trusted adult, a counselor, a teacher. That's information that would not surprise any school figure. So if they could if they don't feel comfortable going to their parent, then go to an authority figure in the schools. And I think a kid's biggest fear is that I'm not going to tell my parents because I do not want my device taken away. And so as a parent, we need to realize that that's not a punishment that we're going to go to, but we might more closely monitor. And if a child understands, I'm not going to take your computer away or your phone away because you got cyberbullied, but I want to make sure that I'm monitoring it more closely.
Now, for our teenagers, they don't want the parents to check the internet. So would you suggest that the parents have an account that they can be able to and go back, track on the internet, like for Facebook, just to see what the kids are talking about?
Well, I always recommend that parents friend them,
okay.
But sometimes kids try to find ways around that. I would recommend, like I said, some sort of software that you can follow, and there's a whole lot of different ones. Some where it will text you right to your phone if there's any talk of promiscuity or drugs or anything, harsh language or anything like that. A parent will immediately get a text to their phone alerting them that there is a negative conversation going on. But they have to have a conversation with their kids about that and say, hey, you know what? I'm putting this on your phone. I don't want parents to do it secretively.
Okay.
I'm putting this on your phone because I want to keep you safe. Because these are things that are rampant in middle school, high school, and whatnot. So they need to understand and have that communication going with their kids.
Okay. Well, Susan, we are almost at the end of our program, but one more thing. Where can people buy your books or view your website or read up a little bit more about you? Did you want to share that with us before we end our...
Yeah, I would love to. My book, The Hero in Me, is the website for my book is theheroinmebook.com. And so there's a lot of activities for teachers, conversation starters for parents on the website. The book can be purchased on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com or directly through my publisher, Nelson Publishing and Marketing.
Okay. Thank you, Susan, for coming out to our show today, the CYF Spotlight Show. And I really appreciate you spending the time with us, going over the bully questions and format for our family. And I thank you again for sharing with us here at CYF.
I'm glad I was here. It's such a big topic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching Children, Youth, and Families Spotlight Show for Farmington and Farmington Hills.